Let's move on to our next segment. 7 keys to lateral thinking. 7 keys to lateral thinking. And for our viewers right now, you'll get, of course, as you know, much more information, much more detail in your workbook. The good news is this is really a précis, an opportunity just to kickstart the process. So what does lateral thinking mean? Let me give you an analogy, if I may. I went to a country town in Victoria a few years ago, and they'd invited me to this country town. It was a small country town, and there were 80 prominent business people at this meeting. I knew that this particular country town was experiencing a drought. Horrendous. As I turned up to speak, I said, "Thank you for inviting me here. What would you like me to do? Inspire us." I said, "Great, just a couple of questions. How's business?" They said, "Lousy." I said, "Why? There's a drought." "Oh, how's business?" This guy listening, "Lousy." "Why is that?" "There's a drought." So I said to one gentleman in the front row, I said, "What do you do, sir?" He said, "I'm a car dealership." I said, "How's business for you?" He said, "The same as everyone else. It's lousy." I said, "Well, thanks for having me. May as well go." I said, "Where are you going?" I said, "Well, there's nothing I can do. There's one of 2 things we can do. I can get on my knees and pray for rain, or maybe we can look at it from a different point of view and apply some natural thinking. Which would you prefer?" They thought, "Well, we've got him here now, so let's apply some natural thinking." So I asked a question. I said, "What radius do you rely on in your town of business? North, east, south or west?" They said, "Oh, about 100 k's. So I asked the obvious question, "How's the drought 100 k's north, east, south or west?" I said, "It's terrible, it's the same." I said, "Well, we're doubly stuffed. I wonder what we could do." As I handed out my pen, somebody grabbed it, came along and drew a bigger circle. So instead of calling that town a 100 k north, east, south radius, maybe we could call that circle Victoria. Maybe our opportunity is to look at how we can service Victoria. No, let's get radical. Let's draw a bigger circle. Call it Australia. In fact, let's go completely mad. Let's call it global. You see, what tends to happen when we've got a problem is we focus on the problem as opposed to look for the solution. In being a lateral thinker, we've got to say, okay, in the case of this car deal, I want you to think about it. There's a town in the midst of the country Victoria that's in a drought. In that particular evening, there was a guy who owned a hotel, motel. There was a restaurateur. There's a car dealer. If they suddenly said, what would it take for us to become the best of what we do globally? What would it take, despite the drought, for me to become the best car dealer, not just in Victoria, Australia, but the world? How could I attract, they could be thinking, somebody from Melbourne to come to this country town, which is a few hundred k's away, to purchase a car? He was a Toyota dealer. Now, you think about it. Why would you drive from Melbourne to a township a few hundred k's away to purchase a car? You probably wouldn't unless there was an incentive. What kind of incentive? Lateral thinking. Well, hang on. You own a hotel. Why don't we do a deal and you put a couple of nights' accommodation in? You own a restaurant. We could throw, gee, if we pulled our resources and we came up with a package, a box, and we gave people a reason to come away for 2 or 3 days, pick up a car at the same probable price as you'd get in Melbourne, but you got all this extra value and had an experience and a time away, maybe we could create some business. Now, a skeptic would fold his or her arms and say, that wouldn't work. My next question would be, what would? I don't know. Then I'd say, shut up, because you're part of the problem. Here's my question. Would this work? We don't know. But until we try, until we apply, how do we know? But what if we did apply, and 1 year later there was no extra sales as a consequence? Would we be better people as a consequence, do you believe? Yes or no? Why? Because we've applied the ability to think laterally, to maybe start to work out we need to work as a team, to think of things from a lateral point of view. What if? And here's the good news. When the rain comes, and it will, we'll be better equipped to better service the market that we really have. The question I want you to consider in this concept of lateral thinking is thinking outside the box. What would you need to become the best at? What would you need to do in order to become the best at what you do globally? That's the question. And by pondering that, and right now if you want to take a few seconds, it would be a good opportunity just to pause the video and think about that question. What would it take for you to be the best at what you do globally? What are some of the things you would need to apply?